see you. Today we are going to take a look through this book all about flower arranging. It's an older book, and I've removed the dust jacket. We're going to spend some time just flipping through the pages, and we're going to stop occasionally and read some sections, just some little paragraphs in here. We're going to focus on the sound of the turning pages and reading different sections. So let's open it up and see what we can find. I have to tell you, this book has very pretty pictures. When you open it up first, it looks like old wallpaper. I kind of like it. It looks like wallpaper from an old house. With a little diamond design, little floral border. And then we have little flowers in a vase, like a water pitcher. I really like this arrangement. This is beautiful. It's very nice. Flower arranging. I love the beautiful pink in here. This is beautiful. I love that. And it's all different types of flowers in there. It's so beautiful. Here's a diagram of some basic shapes, different flower arrangements. I have a triangle, a little arc, another triangle. This is a right triangle, a circle, a wavy line, just a little line there, straight, just diagonal, horizontal, vertical, a square. Wow, that's nice. Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that. Well, here's a nice section that we can read. Selection and care. All efforts at arranging fresh flowers will be to no avail if the rules for their selection and care are not observed, however adept the arranger, however good his or her sense of color and design. There's nothing more disheartening than spending hours on an arrangement only to find the following day that flowers and foliage have wilted. It is most important to select blooms, whether from the garden, the florist's shop, or the country hedgerow, in the peak of condition. It is also vital to curb impatience and allow the flowers some respite and refreshment before arranging them. And finally, a few minutes spent daily tending finished arrangements will prolong their lives and keep them looking fresh and crisp. Cutting garden flowers. Gentle handling when cutting flowers will prevent plants from becoming disfigured and stunted, and cut blooms from being damaged and bruised. If you want to be kind both to the flowers selected for arrangements and to the plants on which they grow, it is important to understand that there is much more to gathering flowers in the garden than simply breaking the stems by hand and amassing a colorful bunch or basketful. When to pick. In warm weather, the best time of day to pick flowers and foliage is in the evening, when plants contain maximum food reserves accumulated during the hours of sunlight. A further advantage of cutting flowers in the evening is that they can be left to soak in water overnight before being arranged in the morning. Some experts prefer to cut flowers early in the morning when they are still turgid with dew and have been revived by the cool, damp night air. Whichever time of day you choose, and there is much to be said for experiment, do not cut flowers at the height of the day when they are at their most debilitated and limp after losing water in the sun. If, however, the weather is wet and cloudy, then it is possible to pick flowers at any time of the day. How to pick. Basic principles. A plant consists of about 9/10 water. Its main source of moisture is in the soil, so when a flower is cut, its main water supply is removed, and since moisture in a stem keeps it turgid and rigid, the stem will quickly become limp. It is therefore most important when cutting flowers to do two things. First, cut the stem in such a way as to facilitate the absorption of as much water as possible. Second, put cut stems into water immediately so that they are away from a water supply for as brief a time as possible. Equipment. To make a clean cut when picking flowers, a pair of clippers for woody stalks and a pair of flower scissors with a serrated edge for softer stems are needed. This equipment is essential since you should never pull or break stems by hand, as this bruises them and does not give them a clean cut. You will also need a bucket in which to put the cut stems as they are picked. It is possible to use an ordinary household bucket, but florists sell special deep buckets with two side handles, and this is preferable to the usual central handle, which can easily damage flower heads. Cutting. Ideally, stems should be cut at an angle in the same way as roses are pruned, as this exposes the widest possible surface for the absorption of water. If stems are cut straight across, they tend to rest squarely on the bottom of the container, and this reduces their ability to take up water. Although stems are generally recut during arranging, it's a full page. And some arrangers desire a squared-off effect, which straight cutting produces. It is important always to cut flowers at an angle in the very beginning so that they can take up as much water as possible during their initial soaking. Be careful when cutting not to endanger the future health of the parent plant. Always leave some leaves and flowers on perennials if you want them to live and to flower the following year. It is best to bear in mind the color, shape, and height of flowers as you pick, with a view to the final arrangement. There is no point in picking so much at random that healthy flowers are discarded. Try to pick flowers at the right stage of their development. If certain flowers are picked too early, they may not develop properly in water. If picked too late, they will not last long. As a rule, choose well-formed buds and pale yellow centers rather than fully developed, pollinated blooms. Many spring-flowering trees and shrubs, such as fruit trees, forsythia, honeysuckle, lilac, magnolia, and willow, can be picked with very tight buds. The warmth of the house, plus a little encouragement with boiling water, sea conditioning, will induce the buds to open. Below is a chart giving the best times to pick some of the most common garden flowers. Soaking. Flowers should be out of water for as short a time as possible. Put a bucket of water in a shady position in the garden so that the flowers can be put in it as soon as they are cut. They should in fact be allowed to soak after any special treatment they may require as part of their conditioning, for at least 2 hours. If you're in a hurry, however, and wish to arrange the flowers straight away, it is particularly important to plunge them into water immediately after cutting them so that they do not lose too much moisture. Use clean rainwater if you have a water bucket. It will be necessary to take the chill off it in winter. Otherwise, use tap water, preferably with a water softener. Conditioning. Preparing flowers and foliage before arranging them is known as conditioning. Some general guidelines are given here, and a chart of special treatments for particular flowers is given later. The principles behind the conditioning process are the same as those applied when cutting flowers, to supply water and to facilitate its absorption. It is therefore vital to see that the severed stem ends are able to take up water. Stems should already be cut at an angle, as described earlier. If it was not possible to put the stems straight into water, they should be recut to remove any seal or air bubble that may have formed. Cut at an angle about 5 centimeters from the first cut. It is best to do this underwater to prevent air pockets. Use flower scissors with a serrated edge to cut soft stems and a pair of clippers to cut woody stalks. That's beautiful. Oh, look at that. This is a unique arrangement. It's roses in a bowl. Containers. Rules about containers may have been swept away, but it is still generally understood that bare branches will look better in heavy crockery pots or in dull, possibly antique, metal containers than in beautiful but formal alabaster urns. Roses may look better in alabaster, but can also be put into pottery or baskets. Arrangements without support obviously must rely to a greater extent on relatively tall or narrow containers. It is possible to obtain straight-sided containers made of glass, china, or metal. Glass containers can add greatly to the effect of an arrangement. Daffodils, closely packed into a straight-sided glass vase, are a good example of this. If the flowers are bunched in the hand and the stems slightly twisted as you put them into the water, the linear effect is a pattern in itself. A rose in a specimen glass might have some foliage left on below water level in order to add interest. If globular glass bottles are used as specimen glasses, they will allow a small amount of foliage to be seen under the water. And apparently this is called the Hogarth curve. This is a classic design of the traditional style and one of the very few in which strict rules apply. It must always stand in a niche or against a wall. The perfect Hogarth curve is delicate, casual, and elegant, and the lazy S, the symbol with which Hogarth signed his pictures, should be one continuous line. It must be arranged in a tall pedestal because half the arrangement falls below the rim of the container, and flowers must be anchored in floral foam because wire does not permit the essential curve. It is also important to use naturally curved material so that the line is graceful and not forced. In the version shown on the opposite page, two suitably curved pieces of curry plant form the two halves of the S shape, placed so that an imaginary vertical line drawn from the tip of the upper piece would touch the tip of the lower. Like that. These first two pieces of material are always the most difficult to place correctly. Once the curve is established, the rest of the material can be used to fill in and to follow the fixed lines. When filling in, it is important to understand the correct proportions of the arrangement which, again, are laid down quite rigidly. The curve should be 1.5 times the height of the container when measured in its entirety, and the width should never exceed 1/4 of the length of the whole. Some of the larger flowers, in this case roses and daffodils, should be placed centrally to give the curve a focal point. Because the tall container is such an integral part of the arrangement, it is vital that it is included in the floral color scheme. Opposite, for example, not only do the green and gray leaves echo the shades of the onyx, but the gilt bronze tones in the other leaves echo the metallic tones of the gilt trim. It's so pretty. Oh, that's very dramatic too. It's so dramatic. Look at that. I love the way this just curves over like that. And then your eye is drawn down here to these roses. It's just in this simple little container down here. This piece goes out like that. Here they show you the angles and the way the angles go of this arrangement. 75 degrees, 10 degrees, 0, and 45. Dynamic piece. This is a simple upright Moribana arrangement in a circular lacquer container which is standing on 2 bamboo rafts. That it is a summer arrangement is shown by the lushness of the foliage, the presence of the roses, and the area of cool water visible in the container down here, whose color suggests a deep pool. In summer it is correct to show a wide area of water. In autumn or winter, the least possible area should be visible, because the sight of water in winter has a chilling effect on the spirit. In this arrangement, the tall curving branch is Shin at 10 degrees. The smaller branch to the right is So at 45 degrees. And the rose to the far left is Hike, I don't know how to pronounce that, at 75 degrees. The other 4 roses are Jushi, 3 of them placed in a line to supplement Shin, and one at the base of Hike to lend a little necessary weight. As the days pass, the roses will open more fully, and the arrangement will change slightly in appearance and character, but this will not matter. The most important aspect of any arrangement is that it is a living thing, and any natural changes which occur are entirely acceptable. Wow, that's cool too. It's very dramatic also. These sloping lines here. This is the last part I'm going to read, and then we're going to look at the remainder of the pages, and then I'm going to turn them back to the very beginning. So we're going to flip all the pages back to the beginning. This delightful example of air-dried flowers by Kenneth Turner shows how spring-like dried materials can be. The wicker basket adds to the effect. The arrangement is made by crumpling chicken wire in a container so that it makes a tall mound. As shown, each flower is wired with silver reel wire and tied to the mesh of the chicken wire. The arranger should begin at the top and work in a downward spiral. And then you come up with something like that.